Hello and welcome to Pathways Through the Prairie, where we interview North Dakota librarians and library staff, state agency leaders and employees, and interesting North Dakotans. I am State Librarian Mary Soucie, and today I'm joined by the North Dakota Insurance Commissioner, Jon Godfread. Jon was elected in 2016 and reelected in 2020 and 2024. Thank you for joining me today,
Yeah, thanks,
Jon.
Mary. Thanks for having me.
Tell us, Jon, what is the core mission and priorities of the North Dakota State Insurance Department?
So it's multifaceted, right? But our primary mission, I think that the people probably care the most about is we are a consumer protection agency. So we are the agency that is there to answer questions, to help people with their insurance policies, to help them in the shopping process, the claims process. Really, what we say, there's no dumb question when it comes to insurance because it gets really, really complicated really, really quickly. And then as of July 1st, we've also taken over the securities agency as well. So we now have insurance and securities, and it's aligned because they oversee their investor protection as their primary mission too. So it's helping North Dakotans as they go through their investments or work with their financial advisors or brokers and dealers. And really just, again, being that resource, that independent resource for North Dakotans to really, if there's any issues, give us a call. We are a fairly well-kept secret, I think, at times because insurance and securities can be a pretty complex, pretty nebulous topic at times. And I don't like to think about my insurance policies every day, but I still do. And so just knowing that we're there to help, I think is a big piece of it. But then also we've got to get out and reach out people to let them know that we're there to help. So you don't think about your policy until you need it, until you got a claim. And so just make sure that they know there's a state agency that can help them when they've got a claims issue or agent issue or questions or shopping or any of those pieces. So that's what we're there for.
So when you say shopping, you mean shopping for different types of insurance?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so life insurance, homeowners insurance, auto insurance, all those different lines, any kind of insurance you can think of, we've got people on staff who are experts in that space and can really answer those questions and kind of help you through. Because everybody's situation is a little bit different.
Right.
It's a little fact dependent. And so working with consumers on what questions you should be asking your agent as you're shopping.
Okay.
What kind of policies are you looking at? And so we've got resources online at insurance.indy.gov, shopping guides and all those type of things. But we've also found that, people give us a call, we can certainly walk them through that process.
Absolutely. I would imagine with the recent storms, you guys have been fairly busy then helping people navigate what
Yeah, I mean, it's a chaotic time, right? I mean, we don't get the phone calls when things are going well.
Right.
We don't get the, hey, man, this claim worked out really well. I thought it was great. We get those times when, my farmhouse is blown down. I've got a loved one who is very ill. I've got a loved one who's passed away. How do I handle the life insurance policy? How do I handle these pieces? So we're really well trained in kind of navigating those difficult situations. But it's just good to know that you can kind of give that over to us and we can help navigate on your behalf. And so we can work with the companies, again, and making sure that the claims process or whatever the outcome is based on North Dakota law. And so based on the contract that you've signed with your company, make sure that they're upholding their bargain as well. And so, at the time when you're facing an auto accident, a windstorm that's blown through your farm, the death of a loved one, a illness of a loved one, the last thing you really want to be doing is dealing with an insurance company, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And so using us as a resource to help navigate that has been a big service for North Dakotans.
What a great service. We had a house fire way back in 1988, actually, and I had just graduated high school, but listening to my parents navigate through the ridiculousness of the insurance. My brothers like to build bikes, and so there were 5 kids in the family, but we had 10 bikes in the garage, and my parents actually had to go into the garage and find each individual bike frame. I mean, it was just crazy. I wish we would have known. I assume every state has a similar agency.
Yeah, so insurance is unique a little bit. It's a state regulated kind of industry, right? And so we're one of the last bastions of really true state regulation. So the laws that are passed in North Dakota do impact our insurance industry. And so we work as a collective body across the 56 jurisdictions in this country. So all the states and territories have an insurance commissioner who's responsible for overseeing their industry. It also, we make sure that the companies are solvent to pay claims. The agents are licensed and properly educated, as well as that consumer protection arm as well. So it's a big job, but we work together as the NAIC, our National Association of Insurance Commissioners. We come together 3 to 6 times a year and meet as a full body and really talk through these local issues that have a nationwide impact and how do we learn from each other. And there is no pride in authorship when it comes to a good idea. So we generally steal from others and implement those pieces here at home in North Dakota. And so It's a good system. It's been around for 154 years, I think. It was the 80th anniversary of the McCarran-Ferguson Act, which is what we hold up as that's what gives states their ability to regulate insurance.
Okay.
And so it's one of those things. It's a job that a decade ago, if you'd have asked me if I'd be insurance commissioner, I'd probably said, "What is it?" and probably not. But I enjoy complexity. I enjoy math and really helping people, and that's what this job's all about. And so it's a fascinating industry. It's a fascinating job, and it's really an honor to get to work with North Dakotans and frankly everybody across the country.
So what was your pathway into public service?
Well, I came out of school out of college playing basketball. I played in Germany for a year. Came back to North Dakota, and I knew I wanted to go to law school. And so I worked in banking at Alaris Financial up in Grand Forks, and was a branch manager. Was kind of heading on that pathway of, okay, I'll be in the financial world. I enjoyed that. Met with the executives at Alaris Financial and kind of said, if you're my age, what's one thing you wish you could go back and do over again? And
That's a smart question.
Unanimously around the table, they all said, I just wish I had a legal education, because of the amount of work we're doing on either mergers and acquisitions. At that time, Alaris was really growing. We send a lot of stuff down to Minneapolis to get legal interpretations done. I just wish I could read it and know. And so I'm like, wow, it's a really good point. And so went to UND Law School with the expectation of going back into banking. A part of UND's law school is really unique, is they have an internship program. So you can serve in the legislature, serve as a legal analyst, or kind of in the back corner of the room. You do the research for the legislature and their committees. It's a semester break. So you get out of school for a semester, you get paid, you get credit. I thought that sounded great. It's a second semester of my second year of law school, which was generally perceived as the hardest. And I'm like, well, if I can go to Bismarck and get paid a little bit and sit in the back of a room and do this stuff, that'd be great. Got exposed to that policy process and really got bit by it. So from there, I worked at the state tax department for a little bit in their legal team, and then went to the State Chamber of Commerce. So as their vice president of government affairs at the State Chamber of Commerce for about 7 years prior to this role. My predecessor announced he wasn't running for re-election. My wife and my family, we kind of looked at it. It's like, well, this would be, it kind of seems to fit. It's not hyper political, which I like. It's math, and math isn't political. You can try to make it political, but at the end of the day, the math will math or it won't. And so looking at those pieces, it was a unique opportunity, and we kind of jumped into it. And so now I'm on my third term and really truly enjoying the work I get to do.
That's awesome. It's funny how many professions a law degree partners with. My predecessor here actually had a law degree in addition to his master's, and we have a state librarian in another state, not me, who has a law degree and is always giving non-legal legal opinions.
It really
when she gives her disclaimer, it really means something.
Yeah, and it really just what I found is it changes how you think a little bit, right? I mean, and so you go through a pretty arduous process of reading and learning and all those pieces, and it does give you some different tools on how you approach problems and how you approach issues, and that's been really unique. I came from an undergraduate in business, and I still remember my first legal writing assignment. So I'm thinking I'm pretty good first year of law school. I'm like, I got this. This is fine. I turned in my first legal writing, and my professor at the time puts the high score, the median, and the low. Well, I'm looking at my sheet. I'm like, oh, that's not very good. And I look up, I'm the low score, and I'm like, okay, I'm 6 weeks into law school. If I quit now, do I get my money back? Like, what's my life going to be? And just panicked. But I went and met with my professors. UND's got a great law school, and like, take a breath. Like, this is business writing and legal writing are completely different. You haven't made that switch yet. You're going to be just fine. And so, but that's all those pieces have kind of come together, I think, to not only help in the legislative process, because we're part of that certainly, but again, just the analysis and looking at the problems. And I'm not a traditional attorney. I don't sit in the courtroom, but it's certainly helped.
Mm-hmm. My colleague that has her law degree and is a state librarian, prior to becoming state librarian, she was a law librarian. And she said she uses her legal degree way more often as a state librarian than she did when she was a law librarian, which I just find fascinating. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But that was never something I thought about. So you've talked a bit about how your agency directly impacts the lives of North Dakotans. Is there a recent example of an initiative or an achievement that has had a tangible positive effect?
So there's a number, I think. I'll share my very favorite one. When I first on the campaign trail, I met with an individual who had been dealing with some long-term disability issues, right? And so he caught me at a parade or something, and just said, "John, I need to talk to you about my long-term disability policy. They're not paying me right. I'm not able to work. I'm not able to do this stuff." And so I told him, I said, let me get elected. And I said, I will have you in the first month in the office. And I said, we will talk and we'll figure it out. He's like, I've talked to the governor. I've talked to, 2 or 3 different governors. I've talked to every congressman. Everybody's telling me it's either you need to go to the state or you need to go to the federal government. It's like everybody's kind of pointing different directions. And so brought him into the office, and he brought bankers boxes full of stuff. And him and his wife had, been very diligent on this process. We walked through, and he's kind of explaining. He's like, well, this is what it is. And he was using a term wrong is what it came down to. And we were able to kind of sit with him for about an hour and figure out, well, do you really mean this? He's like, that's what I've been saying. It's like, well, no, the term, you've been using a different term. That's maybe what's tripping it up. We ended up getting about a $500,000 payout and changing his monthly benefit, right, going forward. That's life-changing stuff for him, right?
Absolutely.
That put him in a financial position where he was able to, he's comfortable now frankly, he was deserved it, right, through the contract and the policy that he signed and that he paid for. We were able to get him what he was owed and deserved, and it changed the trajectory of his life. And so that was a really meaningful first kind of 4 or 6 weeks into the job. It's like, wow, we can have a pretty big impact if we just sit down and listen,
right,
and really work through these. Because again, it's complex. I don't expect everybody to understand the nuance of insurance. That's why we exist. And just taking the time to go through the documents and sit with him and his wife and say, okay, let me see where we're not connecting. And we kind of got there and was able to solve it. Another piece is we just went through and updated our essential health benefits for our ACA plans. So every you can do it however often you want. The ACA plans have been around for it's been about a decade, maybe a little longer now. And when they started off in 2014, the legislature set, here's the essential benefits that we're gonna pay for, we're gonna cover as part of our ACA plans. Decade in, we figured it's probably a good time to review this and take a look at it, and went through and looked at, okay, what are the mandates that are coming to the legislature? What are these pieces? Insulin's one of them, so now it's covered under the essential health benefits. We looked at some GLP-1 medications. These I don't want to call them weight loss medications, but we cover them in North Dakota on our ACA plans for the folks who have kind of uncontrolled, unmanaged diabetes. And that obesity issue leads to cancer, strokes, other cardiovascular issues. And so really trying to approach it from, if we can, help the underlying issue, can we prevent some other catastrophic issues down the road? We've seen some good success with that. Also, another little one was periodontal disease. So that's now covered under our ACA plans, which again, oral care, I still believe oral care is healthcare, right? We're learning so much about if you're not taking care of your mouth and your teeth, it leads to cardiovascular issues, it leads to it's a key area where bacteria comes into your body. And we've had a lot of issues in North Dakota where periodontal disease, or this is a medical condition that was just not being covered by our insurers because it's a dental issue. And dental insurance is different, and able to kind of bridge that gap and get some help for people there. Hearing aids was another one. You used to be able to get one hearing aid covered. Well, if you're a child and you grow, your ears and everything needs it
right,
evolves. So you need to have more than one coverage. Same with prosthetics, right? And so as you grow, your body changes, and so your prosthetic needs to change. Well, for a long time, North Dakotans we covered one. And so the first one. And so, if you're an 11, 12-year-old kid and now you become a 25-year-old adult, you're not going to be able to use the same prosthetic.
right.
And so we've got to solve those issues. And so to me, it was some pretty low-hanging fruit stuff, but that has a pretty big impact on the folks who need those services and provides access to that coverage. And so those are some of the unique opportunities that we've taken on top of a number of other issues. I mean, we also looked at some mental health parity coverage. So there's MAPIA is the law in the federal government where you've got a couple of mental health services the same as you do traditional medical surgical coverages. Well, we were finding that ABA therapy and some of these for autism were not being appropriately covered. And so my office issued a bulletin that opened up the door for ABA coverage in North Dakota for kids with autism. Uh, Again, it was a pretty small tweak and a pretty low cost tweak in my opinion, but it provided clarity to those families who are facing that tough diagnosis. And so it's been fascinating to see some of the impact that we're able to have in what I would call a pretty small agency, a pretty, it's a down ballot elected office. And like I said, I don't think a lot of people know who their insurance commissioner is in their state, but it is an important role that can have some pretty significant impact on folks.
It sounds like it. And for those who are listening who don't know, ACA is the Affordable Care Act,
Yep.
often referred to as Obamacare
Yep.
also, just to clarify that. What do you see as some exciting opportunities or areas of growth for the insurance department?
So I think number one, 2 years ago, we were able to, we brought in the fire marshal underneath us as well, because there is some strong connections between insurance and fire. The first insurance policy sold in the world was a fire policy.
Oh, wow.
If you go back to the days in London and Chicago and all these pieces, every fire station used to have their own policy. And so if I bought a policy from you and another person responded to the fire, they would just sit outside and let it burn until you paid the policy, until you paid them the money. And so obviously not a real great way to operate. And so it led to a fire policy was essentially, so whoever responds will put out the fire and there'll be reimbursement there. So that was kind of the first start of insurance. And so bringing the fire marshal underneath us to have some connections around community risk reduction, how do we approach loss in our country, in our state in terms of wildfire or other fire protection, things like that, has been a good step for us. As I mentioned as early as 2 weeks ago, we have the securities team underneath us now, and there's some absolute synergies there with annuities and a lot of financial products they're starting to blend together when it comes to insurance and financial products. So you go to your financial advisor, they're probably going to offer you some life insurance. They're probably going to look at how do you protect the total risk of your family and give you that financial stability you need that bleeds into insurance as well as securities. So there's some opportunities there to really, I think, put a shot in the arm of how we do investor protections. And then lastly, I think we've just started having some conversations around resiliency in our state. You look at California, you look at down in the southeast part of our country with hurricanes. You look at, we had a windstorm and a hailstorm here recently, wildfires out west. We're entering a time where it's really challenging to secure coverage, I think, for areas, right? Given some of the risks that we're seeing with the severe convective storms and the increase of these losses. And we as communities and we as a state need to take a look at, okay, what are we doing to be resilient to protect ourselves from these losses? There are things we can do. I mean, we know how to build against wind and hail. That's our known peril here in North Dakota. It's just having the political courage and the willingness to do that, right? So I know how to build a roof that will withstand a hailstorm. I know how to build a house that'll withstand a windstorm. But it's the cost element, some of the other pieces, the building code pieces. Nobody wants to talk about building codes. Nobody wants to have restrict private property rights, those type of things. But it's getting to the point where you're seeing it in California, and I don't want it to come to North Dakota, where entire communities, the insurance industry is looking like, well, I can't insure there because it's a bad risk for me to take that on. And there's no law in the country anywhere that would say that I can say you as an insurance company must cover this risk. There's that free market principle where you have that option. And so there's got to be steps taken by communities to incentivize that coverage, right? There's investment there. And so I'd rather get that done, have that conversation now than wait until we have some catastrophic loss that we then got to rebuild from. And so that's an interesting conversation to have. Our home builders, the realtors and all those communities, they're not quite seeing the connection yet. But when you look at California, the cost of insurance is going to start impacting the cost of the value of a home, right? And so there's a certain pot of money that people have to afford to buy a home. And
Right.
if a larger portion is going to insurance, that means the value of that home is going to come down. And so how do we provide resilient communities that spur that investment from the insurance industry?
It's so nuanced and complicated, and it's awesome that your team is here to help people navigate through that, because it sounds way bigger than
Well, we like
Nobody likes to talk to their insurance company, but there's just so many parts to it that I wouldn't have thought.
it's I like to say in this, I don't want to try to give ourselves too much credit, but we underpin the economy, right? And so without insurance, you can't own a home, you can't drive a car, you probably can't start that business. So we allow the risk takers to take risk, and so kind of taking some of that piece off of their plate and making sure that we can provide a good products at affordable levels and all the different options that they need will allow the really entrepreneurial people, the really smart people, the really aggressive people to move our economy forward as long as we build that foundation. And so that's what we try to express to our team, and again, make sure that everybody knows that we're all rolling in the same direction, and there's a really important role to play here, not only on the individual level, but also as an economy as a whole.
And there's just so much information in this arena, and access to credible information is more crucial than it's ever been. And there's just so much information in your arena that people don't even know that they need to be asking. So how does the insurance department ensure that citizens know they have access to relevant information, that the resources are accessible and understandable?
So I'm a big believer in communications. I'm a big believer in the value of professionalized communications departments and things like that. And government communications has generally been a challenge, right? I mean, if I go to the legislature and say I need X amount of dollars to do some outreach and do some awareness campaigns, they're going to look at me and go, boy, Jon just wants to do ads on TV and he doesn't know what he's doing. But the reality is, this is an agency within the state that provides a service to North Dakotans. If they're not aware of that service, we're doing them a disservice. And so we've spent a lot of time trying to build up our comms team and trying to build up our presence there. And it's a slow drip. It takes some time to break through the clutter of all the news and all the information. I mean, you can go get information from anywhere really right now. So being present on social media, making sure that we're having as much media touch as we can, doing things like this is a good option. And so it's been a pretty direct focus of my team to invest into communications to make sure that we're reaching, because again, if nobody knows we exist, we can't provide the service that we provide, and I can't, my team members don't get that satisfaction helping citizens. And so that's our big focus. We've really cleaned up our website and kind of done some renewed efforts there. And so we've got a ton of resources available on our website, insurance.nd.gov. Any part of the process can help you. We can help you there, and just being available to people to have those conversations. But I think your point is well taken, that you can get information anywhere really. And we also really encourage folks to shop with a licensed agent. And so a good agent's worth their weight in gold, because they know the system, they know where to get the information, they know who to call. And so really shopping with that agent is important. The most heartbreaking calls I get are when people have had an auto accident. It's like, well, I shopped online, I got a really cheap quote, a really cheap policy, which is great. But now you're in an accident and you find out that it doesn't really cover much. And so we always tell folks you're shopping on coverage, not shopping on price, which is a challenge because we're facing inflationary times and everything's more expensive.
Right.
But again, at that time of the loss, you want that solid coverage there to be able to get you back on your feet.
Yeah, that shopping with an agent is so important too. My brother was just sharing, they had their roof checked after the big hailstorms we had last year. But then one of his neighbors just found damage and had a recheck. And so he called his insurance company, asked for a recheck, and they turned him down. And then he called at the national level, and he called his local agent, and his agent's like, sit tight, because they got some damage from the recent storms. He said, sit tight, don't do anything. Let me get my guy out there. And he's having a totally different conversation because he has built a relationship with his local agent. It's just so imperative.
And that's what we stress all the time with our agents. It's that relationship focus, right? I mean, we're a really medium-sized city with really long streets, so everybody knows everybody in our state, and we were able to, we have some of that relational activity already, and that's really good, positive. But it's building those relationships, be able to have those conversations, and really help people, I think, is what truly good agents want to do, and they want to be able to do that, and so we really encourage that.
Mm-hmm. So you've talked a lot about your team and about all of the wonderful things that your agency does. What is the most rewarding aspect for you of serving as the insurance commissioner?
I think it's helping people, right? I mean, we're usually helping folks when they're in a time of crisis, to be honest. And so it's you have a loved one who has passed away and you've got a life insurance policy. I have no idea how to navigate this. And or you're in the middle of a home loss or home damage. How do we get back onto our feet? And really being able to take some of that burden off of their shoulders and say, you just keep your family together or get kind of back on your feet. Let us negotiate. Let us talk with the insurance companies and get you what you're owed through your contract. It's those pieces, and I think what really helps me anyway is that it's something different every day for me. I mean, there's so many different lines of insurance. There's so many different corners that you can go down to, and so it's a different issue every day. It's a different issues come up just about every day, which keeps it fresh. And again, I'll go back. If you would have asked me if I'd be here, if I'd be on my third term, I probably I don't know if I would have been, at the beginning. But it's a really enjoyable job because it's so nuanced and it's evolving. And so I just enjoy taking on those complex problems and helping the citizens of North Dakota. I've also been able to take a seat in the national role as well. I'm as the National Association president this year, so I'm kind of working with my peers from a leadership level there to really help direct some of the national policy discussions, which is fascinating. And so it's been a really, really good opportunity to just put my service mindset forward to not only the people here in North Dakota, but also across the country.
Sure. And I know when I get together with my fellow state librarians, there's 50 of us, and then there's the territories and DC, but like nobody else really knows the seat you're sitting in,
Yep.
other than those other folks in the room. And each seat looks different, at least in the state library world. We always say if you've seen one state library, you've seen one state library. I would imagine
That's
it's the
pretty
same,
same, yep.
in your field as well.
Yeah, there's no training for an insurance commissioner. There's no you kind of it's baptism by fire, and that's just about every role in the insurance department too. And we kind of tell folks as they come on board with us, it's like, yeah, you're not going to know this stuff, and we've got resources to help you get there, but it's going to take some time. And again, I think people enjoy the complexity of our team, and they enjoy the work that they get to do.
Mm-hmm. Is there a final message you'd like to share with the folks who are listening about the work of your agency or just about state government in general?
Yeah, I think the biggest message is if you've got a question on insurance, you've got a place to call, you got a place to reach out to, and so help spreading that message. If you have friends who have issues, if you have people you like, people you don't like, whoever it is, and they're having questions on insurance, you can point them our direction, and we can. If we don't know the answer, we know where to get the answer. We know how to help you get through that. And so that's the big message is just trying to get our awareness out to folks so they know. On state government as a whole, I mean, I think North Dakota's unique. We've got kind of unique access to a lot of our leadership here in the state. I mean, Governor Armstrong is as accessible as they come, and that's fascinating and fantastic. And he's a dear friend of mine. And so just relying on that uniqueness of our state, I think, and being able to recognize that that's a special thing, and we need to hold on to that, and making sure that we're all North Dakotans, and so we're all generally part of the same neighborhood, for lack of a better term, and bringing that back of being able to have conversations with our neighbors, and we may not agree on it, but again, I think starting from a place of good intentions is something we're missing, and we're seeing that on the national level an awful lot. It's starting to creep in here to North Dakota, and it gets tiring because again, I generally assume good intentions with people that I'm working with, I'm talking with, and either I'm coming from a different viewpoint, or maybe they don't understand some of my nuance, I don't understand their nuance, and there's a way we can probably solve the problem together. But it starts with a conversation. It starts with again that assumption of good intentions, and I'm getting a little worried that we're losing some of that, and understanding that again, we're 800,000 people as a state,
Right.
and so whether you're in the legislature, whether you're in state government, wherever you're at, whatever role you're serving, again, I think everybody's trying to do the best for the state of North Dakota. I think that you don't get into these jobs without wanting to do that, and so giving that starting point as intentions is really critically important when you have conversations. And I'd like to say I'm optimistic that it's going to change, but I think we've probably got some ways to go before it gets better.
Yeah, conversation is really the way to get
Yep.
there, and relationship building.
Yep.
And that is, I grew up in Illinois in the Chicagoland area, and so when I moved here, there are some differences for sure. And I share the story. A couple years ago, I was driving by the Civic Center, and a car got stuck couldn't get through the light, and like 3 cars behind hopped out, doors open in this middle of the street, and got the car pushed until it got rolling. And that kind of stuff still happens here, which I hope continues for a really long time.
Yeah, I think that absolutely still has happened. But then if you start talking policy or politics, all of a sudden they may be fighting, right? It's just like
Right.
And so I think the heart of our state and the heart of the people is still really, really good. I think we're getting caught up into again some of these toxic discussions on either politics or policy or what have you. And there's really no place for that here in North Dakota, and I hope we can maintain the uniqueness that we have.
I agree. I always like to wrap up the podcast. I never ask a librarian their favorite book because, quite frankly, how can we give just one? So I always like to ask, what is a book that you've read that you really enjoyed and you love telling other people about?
So I'm down the road of kind of post-apocalyptic stuff. So when I read, I like to get an escape, right? I mean, that's what I use it for. I spend a lot of time reading, whether it's policies, whether it's legal documents, all those type of things. So I'm not a big nonfiction guy because there's too much of it in my life right now. And so I've been big into Andy Weir's stuff, the Martian, Hail Mary. Those are really, really enjoyable to me. And so anything kind of in that vein, I went back and just read the Sphere from Michael Crichton, and so the older book. And so, but those type of things are just kind of a nice escape for me. So that's the vein I'm in right now, and I've been living in for a little while, which is
I love it.
Yeah,
that's great. I had a question that popped in my head earlier, and then it popped out, and it just popped back. AI, artificial intelligence. That's the topic of conversation everywhere. Where does that fit in with the insurance department? Is AI impacting your industry as well?
Absolutely. So I'll go back to the beginning of 8 years ago when I went to the NAIC, new commissioner, raised my hand to be the vice chair of Innovation Technology Task Force. So unbeknownst to me, the chair at that time was going to be resigning in 6 months. And so within 6 months, I found myself as a chair of our Innovation Technology Task Force. And got to be exposed to Google and Waymo and the autonomous vehicle discussion and all the other artificial intelligence pieces. It is at the forefront of our industry right now. You look at using artificial intelligence to make policy decisions or do things like that, and where does bias come in, and how do you protect against some of that unintended consequences or that the bias that you can see with these algorithms. And the impact that can have on people's lives, right? You can have a bad underwriter who maybe makes a bad decision that affects one handful of policies, but if you deploy an AI algorithm to your book of business, all of a sudden that's your entire book that can make some bad outcomes. And so, 3 or 4 years ago, we passed through the NAIC and through the national body, which I was the chair of the time, of our artificial intelligence principles. So fairness, accountability, transparency, safe, secure, and robust, accountable, all those type of things. They're principles based because it's evolving quickly, but making sure that our industry understands that as you deploy these tools, you have to understand what the impacts are, because if you get it wrong, we're the regulator, we can come in and there's a risk there. The one thing that I'll say about the insurance industry is we're inherently risk averse. And so as you look at deploying these new tools, it's been a pretty slow walk, which is good, but man, it has the ability to dramatically change not only our industry, but I'd say the entire economy and how this goes. And so we're working very closely with the federal government. We're working very closely with our state regulators across the country on what does artificial intelligence regulation look like. We haven't gotten it right yet, but it's absolutely, there's a lot of benefits, but there's also a lot of concerns we have. Again, when you start implementing these pieces and removing the human from some of those discussions, there's a chance for some really bad outcomes that can really impact people, and trying to mitigate against that.
That makes a lot of sense. As I'm talking with different state agency leaders, I've just been struck again and again about the parallels between the library industry and like now the insurance industry. So that this has been fascinating to learn about all of the many services that you and your team provide. So Jon, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. And thank you everyone for listening in.